The air was thick with the scent of damp earth and crushed marigolds. Thunder growled low in the belly of the sky, not yet breaking, but coiled like a leopard ready to strike. Beneath the gnarled roots of the ancient baobab, its bark scarred with generations of carved names, a young man knelt, trembling, his fingers slick with soil. The moon, a sliver of bone, cast long shadows that danced like ghosts across the clearing. His breath came in ragged gasps. Sweat stung his eyes. In his hands, he held a wooden box, no larger than a child's palm, carved with symbols no living tongue could name. He had come to rob a grave, not for gold, not for silver, not even for the jade amulet rumored to rest beneath the skull of the old chief. No, he had come for something far more dangerous, something no thief had ever dared take before. A name. Not just any name, her name, the name of the girl who had died before her time, before her voice had fully risen in song, before her feet had learned the rhythm of the harvest dance. The name that had been whispered only once, then buried with her beneath the baobab, as tradition demanded. The name that, if spoken aloud by a living soul, would awaken the epoma, the spirit of the forgotten dead, and bring down the wrath of the ancestors. But Kofi had no choice. He had seen the fever take his sister, Amina. Not the kind that burns and fades, but the kind that watches. Her eyes had grown too wide, too knowing. She spoke in tongues, not the language of the market, not the tongue of the elders, but something older, deeper. She called out names no one remembered, names like Neka, Chidi, Udo. And then, one night, as the moon turned blood red, she whispered a single word into his ear. Iyawo. His breath caught. Iyawo. Not just a name, a living name, a name that breathes, a name that once spoken binds the speaker to the dead. And then Amina had died. But not truly, because the next morning, her body was gone. Only a single strand of black hair, coiled like a serpent, remained on her mat. The elders had gathered. The diviner, Mama Obi, had drawn lines in the ash, consulted the cowrie shells, and shaken her head. She is not dead, she said, voice low, like wind through dry grass. She is claimed, by the one whose name was buried, the one whose grave you, Kofi, have just desecrated. Kofi looked down at the box in his hands. It pulsed faintly, like a heartbeat. The symbols on its lid glowed with a faint greenish light, the color of the river at dusk when the crocodiles stir. I didn't know, he whispered. I only wanted to save her. You have opened a door, Mama Obi said. And now the door must be answered. The dead do not forgive, they do not forget, and they do not return names unclaimed. The thunder cracked. Rain began to fall, first in fat, heavy drops, then in sheets. The baobab groaned, its roots shifting like sleeping giants. From deep within the earth a sound rose. Not a voice, not a song, but a name whispered in 1,000 echoes. Yawoel! Kofi clutched the box to his chest. He had to run. He had to hide. But where? The village would turn on him. The elders would bind him in red clay and bury him alive for breaking the sacred law. The ancestors would hunt him through dreams, through the market, through every shadow in the forest. But if he didn't speak the name, Amina would never come back. And so, in the pouring rain, beneath the weeping baobab, Kofi did the unthinkable. He opened the box, and he spoke. Iyawo! The word tore from his throat like a scream, but it was not his voice. It was older, deeper. A woman's voice, layered with centuries. The earth trembled. The box burst into green flame, then dissolved into ash. The wind howled, carrying the name into the jungle, into the river, into the sky. And from the roots of the baobab, a hand emerged, not decayed, not skeletal. Flesh and blood, then a face, then a body. A girl no older than Amina rose from the earth. Her skin was the color of midnight rain, her hair braided with beads of bone and river clay. Her eyes, oh, her eyes, were two pools of liquid moonlight, ancient and knowing. She looked at Kofi, and she smiled. You called, she said. You broke the silence. You spoke my name. Kofi fell to his knees. I didn't mean to. You did, she said, stepping forward, and now I am free. She reached out, touched his cheek. Her fingers were warm. But you must pay the price. And then, before he could speak, she turned and walked toward the village, her bare feet leaving no prints in the mud. Kofi followed, heart pounding. He didn't know what he had done, but he knew. He had awakened something that should have stayed buried. How had it come to this? Let the story begin not with the grave, but with the boy. Kofi was not born a thief. He was born in the village of Umu Eze. nestled between the winding Oshun River and the dense, whispering Igbo forest. The village was small, proud, and bound by tradition. The air always carried the scent of roasting yams, palm oil, and the faint, sweet smoke of kola nut offerings laid at the foot of the ozo tree, the tree of ancestors. Kofi's father, Na Kofi, was a respected farmer, a man who measured the seasons by the stars and the songs of the birds. His mother, Mama Neka, was a weaver, her hands creating cloth so fine it was said the spirits wore it in the afterlife. Kofi and his younger sister, Amina, grew up in a house built of red clay and palm thatch, where the walls hummed with the voices of ancestors and the laughter of children. Amina was the light of the family, not just because she was beautiful, her skin like polished ebony, her eyes bright as fireflies, but because she sang. From the moment she could talk, she could sing. Her voice carried over the fields, through the market, even into the forest where the monkeys would pause to listen. The elders said she had the ofo, the gift of the ancestors, that her voice could call the rains, soothe the sick, and even if she wished, summon the dead. But that gift came with a price. When Amina turned 12, the dreams began. She would wake screaming, drenched in sweat, her body trembling. "I saw her," she would whisper. "The girl with the moon eyes. She stands by the river, calling my name." Kofi would hold her, stroke her hair. "It's just a dream. Just a dream." But it wasn't. One night, she didn't wake. She sat up, eyes wide, and began to sing, a song no one had ever heard. The notes were high, piercing like a flute made of bone. The melody twisted and turned, rising and falling in a language no one knew. The house grew cold, the oil lamp flickered, the chickens outside fell silent, and then she spoke. "Iyawo, Iyawo, I come." Her voice was not her own. The next morning she was ill, not with fever, but with absence. Her eyes were open, but she saw nothing. She ate when fed, drank when given water, but she did not speak. She did not blink. She just stared, through the wall, through the sky, through time itself. The village elders gathered. Mama Obi, the diviner, came with her calabash, her beads, her sacred staff carved with the anyanwu, the eye of the sun. She consulted the Ifa oracle, cast the opepe nuts, and drew lines in the dust. "She is not sick," Mama Obi said. "She is called." "Called by whom?" Kofi demanded. "By the one whose name was buried, the one who died with her voice unheard, the one who was forgotten." "Who?" Kofi pressed. Mama Obi hesitated. "There is a grave beneath the baobab, a grave with no marker, a grave that should not be spoken of. A girl, Iyawo, who died before her naming ceremony. Her name was never spoken, her spirit was never released, and now it seeks a voice." Amina's voice? Yes, and more. It seeks her. The elders decided. Amina would be taken to the Ogwu, the river of healing, where the priest of Osanyan, god of herbs and medicine, would attempt to break the spirit's hold. Kofi carried her on his back through the jungle. The path was narrow, overgrown with nkanda vines and umu akba creepers that whispered when touched. The air was thick with the scent of wild ginger and the musk of unseen animals. Fireflies danced above the canopy, their light like distant stars. At the river, the priest, a man with a face like cracked clay and eyes that glowed in the dark, performed the ritual. He burned ogwu leaves, chanted in the old tongue, and poured libations into the water. He placed a kola nut on Amina's tongue, a cowrie shell on her forehead, and tied a red thread around her wrist. For 3 days and nights, they waited. On the third night, Amina woke. She sat up, blinked, and smiled. "Kofi," she said, "I'm back." The village rejoiced. The priest declared the spirit banished. The ancestors were satisfied, but Kofi noticed something. Amina's voice had changed. It was still beautiful, still powerful, but it had a hollow quality now, like a drum played on the wrong side. And sometimes when she sang, the birds would fall silent. The river would slow, the wind would stop. And then one evening, as she stood by the river washing clothes, Kofi saw her reflection. It wasn't Amina. It was a girl with moonlit eyes and a face carved from sorrow. Kofi froze. Amina turned, smiled at him. "What are you looking at?" "Nothing," he lied. "Just the water." But that night, he went to Mama Obi. "The spirit is still there," he said. "It's not gone. It's inside her." Mama Obi sighed, her face lined with sorrow. "I feared this. The spirit did not leave. It merged. It is using Amina as a vessel, and soon it will grow stronger. It will take her body, her soul, and then it will seek its name." "Why does it need its name?" Because a name is power. A name is identity. Without a name, a spirit is nothing. It wanders lost in the Iyamama, the river of the forgotten. But if the name is spoken, the spirit becomes whole. It can walk again. It can live. And if it lives, what happens to Amina? Mama Obi looked away. She becomes the shadow, the echo, the one who was but is no longer. Kofi's heart broke. He couldn't lose her. Not like this. Not to a dead girl who had no right to her life. And so he made a decision. He would steal the name, not to speak it, but to hold it, to keep it from the spirit, to trap it in a box, buried where no one could find it. And then he would find a way to free Amina. But how? He remembered the old stories, the tales told by the firelight, when the children were asleep and the elders spoke in hushed tones. They spoke of the Ekpoma, the spirit of the forgotten dead, who could be appeased only by the true naming of the dead, and of the box of silence, a vessel carved from the heartwood of the ogbuni tree, said to trap names, voices, and even souls. And then he remembered the grave, the one beneath the baobab, the one with no marker, the one where Iyawa was buried. He would go there. He would dig. He would take the box, and he would hide it. But first, he needed help. He went to his best friend, Chike, a boy with a quick mind and a fearless heart. Chike was the son of the blacksmith, and he knew the jungle like the back of his hand. "You're mad," Chike said when Kofi told him the plan. "Robbing a grave? That's not just against tradition. That's against the gods." "I don't care," Kofi said. "Amina is dying, and I won't let a ghost take her." Chike studied him for a long time. Then he nodded. "Then I'll come. But if we're caught, we'll be buried alive. And not in the sacred way, in the cursed way." They waited for the new moon, the time when the spirits are weakest, when the veil between worlds is thin but not open. They gathered tools: a spade, a torch made of ugu resin, a cloth of indigo dye to ward off evil, and a kola nut to offer the ancestors. They left the village at midnight, moving like shadows through the fields, then into the forest. The jungle was alive with sound, the croak of frogs, the rustle of leaves, the distant cry of a leopard. The air smelled of moss, wet earth, and the faint, sweet rot of fallen fruit. As they approached the baobab, the forest grew silent. No birds, no insects. Even the wind stopped. The tree loomed ahead, massive, ancient, its trunk wide enough to house a family. Its roots spread like the fingers of a giant, some rising from the earth, others plunging deep into the soil. At the base, a small mound of earth. No marker, no flowers, no sign of remembrance. Kofi knelt. He placed the kola nut on the ground. "We come not to disturb," he whispered, "but to save. Forgive us, ancestors. Forgive us, Yawa." Then he began to dig. The soil was soft, dark, rich with worms and roots. The spade cut deep. Chike stood guard, torch in hand, eyes scanning the darkness. An hour passed, then two. And then the spade struck wood. Kofi's breath caught. He dug carefully, clearing the soil around a small, square box. It was made of dark, oily wood, carved with symbols, spirals, eyes, serpents, and a single open mouth. On the lid, 3 words were etched in the old script: "Speak and be heard." Kofi reached for it. "Wait," Chike hissed. "Look," he pointed. Around the base of the baobab, the roots were moving. Not like roots, but like hands, twisting, reaching. And from the earth, a low, guttural sound began to rise, like the growl of 1,000 buried voices. Kofi grabbed the box. They ran. They didn't stop until they reached the river. They buried the box in a hollow beneath a palm tree, wrapped in cloth, sealed with red clay, and covered with stones. They marked the spot with a single white feather, a sign of truce, of peace, of not forgotten. But they were not safe. That night, Amina woke. She stood in the middle of the village, naked, her skin glowing faintly in the moonlight. Her eyes, oh, her eyes, were no longer human. They were deep, black pools, reflecting not the night, but a river of stars. She began to sing, the same song, the same voice, the same name. "Iyawo, I come?" The villagers woke in terror. The elders gathered. Mama Obi arrived, her face pale. "The name has been disturbed," she said. "The spirit knows it is free. It is coming." "Where?" Kofi asked. "To the source, to the grave, and then to the one who holds the name." Kofi's blood ran cold. They had to move the box. But where? He remembered the old stories of the Cave of Echoes deep in the Igbo forest, where no sound could escape, where even the wind was silenced. It was said to be the mouth of the underworld, guarded by the Adzi, the blood-drinking spirits of the dead. but it was the only place the name could be hidden. He and Chike returned to the forest. They dug up the box. The symbols on it were now glowing, pulsing like a heartbeat. The air around it shimmered, as if the world itself was resisting its presence. They carried it deeper into the jungle, following a path only the elders knew. The air grew colder. The trees twisted into grotesque shapes. The ground became spongy like walking on a corpse. And then they saw it, the cave. It was a gaping maw in the side of a cliff, ringed with bones, animal and human. The entrance was carved with faces, their mouths open in silent screams. The wind howled as it entered, but no sound came out. "This is it," Chike said. "The Cave of Echoes." They stepped inside. The darkness was absolute. The torchlight flickered, then died. Only the glow of the box remained, green, sickly, pulsing. They moved deeper, the walls closing in. The air smelled of iron and decay, and then from the depths a voice, not a voice, a name. Yawo. It came from everywhere and nowhere. Kofi froze. The box trembled in his hands. Then a hand, it shot out from the darkness, grabbed Chiki by the throat and yanked him into the blackness. Kofi screamed, "Chike!" No answer, only the name. "Yawo, Yawo, I come." Kofi ran. He didn't look back. He burst out of the cave gasping, the box clutched to his chest. He ran through the forest, through the fields, past the river until he reached the village. He collapsed at the feet of Mama Obi. "I lost him," he sobbed. "I lost Chike." Mama Obi's face was stone. The spirit took him, as a price, for disturbing the grave, for stealing the name. "Then I'll give it back," Kofi cried. "I'll bury it again. Too late," she said. "The name has been awakened. It cannot be silenced. It must be spoken." "By who?" "By the one who stole it. By you." Kofi looked at the box. It was no longer glowing. It was pulsing, and from within he heard a whisper. "Speak my name, and I will give you your sister back." It was a lie. He knew it. But what choice did he have? That night, he returned to the baobab, alone. The rain had started, the thunder growled, the earth was soft, muddy, waiting. He knelt, he opened the box, and he spoke. "Iawo!" The name tore through the night. The earth split. The girl emerged. And now, as he watched her walk toward the village, Kofi realized he had not saved Amina. He had replaced her. The girl, Iawo, stepped into the village like a queen returning. The villagers fell back, whispering, crossing their fingers, spitting to ward off evil. The elders bowed. Mama Obi knelt. Iawo smiled. "I am home," she said. She walked to the center of the village, where the fire still burned. She stood before it, raised her arms, and began to sing. But it was not her voice, it was Amina's, and yet not. The song was beautiful, haunting. It spoke of rivers, of stars, of a girl who died before her time, before her name was spoken, before her life had meaning. And as she sang, the air shimmered. Amina appeared, not in body but in spirit. A translucent figure floating above the ground, her eyes filled with tears. "Kofi," she whispered, "you brought her back, but you lost me." Kofi fell to his knees. "I didn't mean to." "I know," Amina said, "but you did. The name was never meant to be spoken. It was buried for a reason, to protect the living, to protect me. But you were dying." "I was changing," she said. "The spirit didn't want to take me. It wanted to merge, to become whole, to live again. But you feared it, you stole its name, and now it is whole. And I am nothing." Tears streamed down Kofi's face. Iawa stopped singing. She turned to Amina's spirit. "You are not nothing," she said, her voice now gentle, kind. "You are remembered. And I am not a thief, I am an heir." She reached out. Amina's spirit reached back. Their fingers touched, and then they merged. Not into one, but into balance. Amina's spirit flowed into Iawa's body. Not replacing her, not consuming her, but joining her, like two rivers meeting, becoming one. Iawa's eyes, once cold, ancient, now held warmth. Amina's smile, once lost, now lived again. She looked at Kofi. "I am both," she said, "and I am whole." The villagers gasped. Mama Obi rose, her face filled with awe. "The ancestors have spoken," she said. "The name was not meant to be buried. It was meant to be shared. The dead do not take, they give, and the living do not fear. They remember." Kofi wept. He had been wrong. He had seen the spirit as a monster, as a thief, as a threat. But it was not. It was a person. A girl who had died before her time. A girl whose name had been silenced. A girl whose voice had never been heard. And he had tried to silence her again, by stealing her name, by hiding her truth, by fearing what he did not understand. But the ancestors had a different plan. The dead do not return to take, they return to be remembered, to be named. And in that naming, they heal, not just themselves, but the living. Because when we forget the dead, we forget ourselves. We become hollow, like Amina, like Kofi, like the village. But when we remember, when we speak the names of those lost, when we honor their lives, their stories, their existence, then we become whole. And the dead, they become family. Iyawo, now Amina Iyawo, stepped forward. She placed her hand on Kofi's shoulder. "You called me," she said, "and in calling me, you called her. And now we are both here." She turned to the villagers. "I was buried with no name," she said, "but now I have two, and I will sing them both, for the living, for the dead, for all of us." And she began to sing a new song, a song of memory, a song of return, a song of home. The villagers joined in. At first, just the elders, then the children, then the young. The fire burned higher, the drums began to beat, the dancers rose, their feet pounding the earth in rhythm with the ancestors. And Kofi, he sat on the ground, the box now empty beside him. He had stolen a name, and in doing so he had given one back. Not to the dead, but to the living. Because a name is not just a word, it is a promise to remember, a promise to honor. A promise to see the ones we love even after they are gone. And when we keep that promise, the dead do not haunt us, they bless us. Weeks passed, the village changed. The elders began a new tradition, the night of names. On the full moon, every family would gather, light a lamp, and speak the names of those they had lost. Not just the recent dead, but the forgotten ones, the ones with no graves, the ones with no stories. And Amina Iyawo sang. Her voice, now a blend of two souls, carried over the fields, through the forest, across the river. It was said that the animals paused to listen, that the rain fell when she sang, that the ancestors danced in the wind. Chike, he was never found, but one night, during the night of names, a single white feather appeared on the grave beneath the baobab, and a whisper on the wind, "Thank you." Kofi never stole again. He became a keeper of names. He traveled to other villages, teaching the tradition. He wrote the names in a book made of bark, sealed with beeswax and red clay. He taught children the old songs, the old stories, the old truths. And he never forgot, because the greatest theft is not stealing from the dead, it is forgetting them. And the greatest gift is remembering. One evening, as the sun set behind the baobab, painting the sky in gold and violet, Kofi stood at the river's edge. Amina Iyawo joined him. "Do you think," she asked, "that one day I will be forgotten?" Kofi smiled. "No," he said, "because I will speak your name every day, until my last breath, and then someone else will, and someone else, because a name, a true name, never dies." She took his hand, and together they walked back to the village where the fire burned, the drums beat, and the ancestors watched, not in anger, but in love. So, my child, listen well. When you walk through the village and you see the old graves beneath the trees, do not fear them. When you hear a name whispered in the wind, do not silence it. When a story is forgotten, tell it, because the dead are not gone. They are waiting, waiting for a voice, waiting for a name, waiting for you. And when you speak it, you do not summon the dead. You set them free, and in doing so, you set yourself free. Remember the names, honor the stories, keep the ancestors alive. And if you felt the breath of this tale on your neck, if your heart has quickened at the whisper of forgotten souls, then do not walk away. Subscribe to African Haven Tales, where every story is a bridge between the living and the dead, and every name is sacred.